Mind anyone of anything? It's their interaction with you. They're looking to you to be the experts and to tell them what they're going to be buying. And you're basically saying, we don't have our stuff coordinated well enough.
So this is what the buyer is seeing. They make those selections. It automatically populates. You can toggle back and forth between a photo real rendering and also a 2D view.
Home building hasn't changed that much over X amount of years. How people buy, all of that has changed dramatically.
It's all about the buyer journey. Floor plan customization starts online. And I would say, while there are graphical assets that come out of this process, I think what's really interesting is the process itself. It's the how you get to those assets and how you engage with your buyers and how different functions within the builder work with these assets and work within this tool. And I think that's super exciting. It always seems impossible until it's done. That just kind of hit me when I was looking at this particular topic and thinking about what the message is. It doesn't seem possible until you see someone's actually done it. Our customers' desire for content and personalization has just exploded, right? We've been talking about that already in our other sessions. Today's expected cycle time for graphical assets is minutes and days, not weeks and months, right? It's a labor of love sometimes. And our teams are just stretched super, super thin, right? You're trying to, get all these graphical assets in place, and then it's like, whoops, we're going to make a change. So let's go change the floor plan, and let's go change the marketing materials, and let's go change the visualizer. I mean, it's a proliferation. And what's finally possible through what you're going to see today is through technology and AI and good business processes as well, there is a way to simplify, expedite, and save some costs along the line. And I think the other important message here that you will see come through, this is possible because of collaboration and partnership, right? So this is a deep partnership between Epcon Communities, the builder, and Higharc as the tool provider. And their success would not have been possible if they hadn't been willing to sit down and kind of work through the kinks and figure out how to make it work and what can make it better, and that dialogue. And I think sometimes we get trapped into a traditional vendor relationship where we're sitting across from the table and we're kind of negotiating, so we don't want to share information. These guys are pretty open kimono. With all that said, our presenters today, we've got Rob Krohn, who's VP of Marketing at Epcon. I've known Rob for many, many years. We've presented together. And he has been at Epcon in a variety of positions for, is it 12 years?
12 years.
12 years.
Add the 1 week.
In 1 week. I should look at my notes, actually. Before that, he was in an agency as well as the insurance world. So certainly brings a wealth of knowledge. And then Paul, you said it, I read it on your LinkedIn page. You've been in the industry 22 years long. So that long. But he, before Epcon, he was at Arthur Rettenberg, he was at NVR. So brings a wealth of experience from different builder lenses, if you will. And what I do like about this case study as well is that we don't just have one function represented from the builder. We have a regional president and we have marketing both nodding up and down saying this is a great tool and it works for us. That doesn't always happen. And then last but not least, we have Connor, who has been at Higharc for 4.5 years, which, when was Higharc founded?
8 years ago.
8 years ago, so about half of that. But he has a pretty long tenure in the home building industry, working for builders, including Pulte. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Krohn.
For those that aren't familiar, Epcon Communities, we are a home builder and community developer that builds homes and communities that are popular with the 55 plus market. We have 6 corporate regions as well as 70 plus franchise builders in 24 states. In my role, I not only have to help the corporate side to bring our homes and communities to life, I also have to be an advisor to all of our franchise builders. So it's how do we go out and find resources and assets and provide them the tools that maybe they can't afford or find on their own. Maybe they don't have time to come to conferences like this. and how do we really help them do their business? As Melissa said, I've got various backgrounds. I didn't grow up in the home building industry. I was in the advertising agency world. I had my own marketing company. I was in the insurance world. I was in high growth tech startups, software development, a lot of what many people in this room do. So when I came into home building, I had that knowledge coming in and stepped into an industry that I think we can all agree sometimes is not as advanced as maybe some other industry. And so I immediately in my roles was always looking for the tech solutions that could be applied intelligently, not replace just the building and developing, but bring in tech solutions that would augment and help our company. In that role within the organization, you start to see where there were roadblocks, the things that as a marketing person you run into all of the time that are slowing down your ability to get to a market effectively and communicate with your buyers effectively. We're home builders. We build homes, and that starts with a construction document. It's the people putting together these are saying, how do I build this home efficiently? How do I build all these things into it so that it looks good, it feels good, it sounds good, it meets market demand? A lot of technical goes into this. The product development team puts a lot of time and energy into putting these together. And then they take it to the marketing team and says, here are our plans. Do whatever you do, and we're going to go off and start to build these homes. So question, how many people in here are in the marketing role in their organization? We get these wonderful construction plans and
Those
we
are
go off.
pretty.
Yeah,
Very pretty.
man,
I want to buy that.
yeah, you got to buy this one. We get them and we're like, okay, let's go talk to our vendors and we're going to produce these fantastic floor plans based on this. We're going to do elevations to go with it. And we spend the next 2 or 3 months really honing in, going through revisions. Well, what's happening at the exact same time is the construction team goes off and they start building it. And they decide, oh, everything we put down on paper initially doesn't quite work. So suddenly you go, oh, that window's now a door. Oh, wait a minute. That's not that we're going to make the door swing a different way. Oh, that we've changed that light on the front. This continues, by the way. I'm going to keep going because we all live with it. We've changed that shower configuration. Oh, we're not using that garage door anymore. That fireplace is gone. These is now 2 windows or a slider or a western wall. And now you are having these assets that are just completely out of date for the buyer. And they're coming in saying, oh, I love this. This is what I want. I saw it on your website. And the salesperson now has to write all these red lines on everything going, well, it's not exactly what we're going to be selling you.
Well, do you like give them Sharpies?
Yes. Yeah. They got their Sharpies.
Okay, good.
Yeah. It's
Good.
a
'Cause
official
that's an
Sharpies
effective
within that.
tool. Yeah.
And now they come back to us and say, marketing, why is your stuff out of date? And we're like, wait a minute, we built it based on what the plan was. Well, that's not what they're building out here in the field. So then we got to go back to the vendor again and start making these adjustments and trying to redo all our assets, then repopulating and reprinting brochures and redoing the website. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of heads nod because this is the experience we deal with on a daily basis. But the thing is, when we do this, we're losing trust with our buyers. It's their interaction with you. They're looking to you to be the experts and to tell them what they're going to be buying. And you're basically saying, we don't have our stuff coordinated well enough. Now think about that as an impression as a builder, how you're losing trust with that buyer in that moment. Well, if they can't keep this straight, how did they keep the stuff behind the walls straight? And that's really what happens. It's not just the inaccuracies and the salesperson having to explain it. It's that trust factor that you're losing as a builder. Experiencing this for years, Paul was coming into our organization and he was working with our product development team. And I told him, this is our biggest hassle in the marketing side. Can you help solve this? I go, there's products out there that bridge marketing and sales. And they're the visualizing tools, the elevations, the floor plans, and the like. And then there's the tools that bridge sales and construction. Well, we've got the contract. We're now ready to go build the home. but there wasn't anything bridging the whole thing. Get me from marketing to construction, from beginning to end. And it's real time, it is accurate. And it's when the buyer comes in, they're seeing the latest, any revision to the construction plans that have happened. And I took it to Paul, and then he came back a couple months later and says, I think I have it. And that was within the Higharc product. And he walked me through what he had found, and I said, that's it. That's what we need. If a door becomes a window in real time, do my assets online and that are printable also reflect that in real time, or within an hour or two, but not 3 months later while other revisions are going on? That was the revolutionary moment. My eyes got big. I got excited in your office. I don't know if you remember that, but I was like, you've just saved my team a lot of hassle and a lot of time and helped us look better to our buyers in the end.
Those of you who know Rob know that he's very shy, so I did have to pull these objections out of him over a great period of time.
That's it.
But for those of you who are marketers in the room, what you have to keep in mind is your owner, your company president might be somebody like me that has a building background. So I don't fully understand that you don't understand blueprints. And thinking back to the Higharc journey that we've been on, it started a little over 5 years ago now.
The best day of my...
It was at one of our communities in Cincinnati. And believe it or not, back then, we were really just focused with them on getting our lot specific plans accurate. That every time we sell a house, we would be building off of a set of plans reflecting that customer's selections. And my goal with Rob at the time, what I was showing him, is that they had this capability where you could download a sales brochure based on the selections the customer made. And that was specific to what they selected. So this whole integration, that was the initial goal, just to get the 2D assets really accurate. What we're going to be able to show you today is what that's really snowballed into. And Higharc's done a great job of really expanding what they offer over time. And just the online capabilities that they have now to see a selection specific home in 3D, in color. And just within the last year, we've now had the ability to effectively put it on our website. So that's kind of the show and tell that I have for you today. It's called Showroom Intro because the typical interface of Higharc is called Showroom. That's what our sales consultants have been using in our sales center since 2023. Now, the issue with just putting that on the website is it would have all of our selections in it. It just wouldn't be customer friendly where somebody could self-navigate in it and really understand. So we had to figure out a way with Higharc. How can we show not everything we offer, but enough to get people really excited and playing around with our product that they get excited either before they visit a sales center, or maybe it's the homework that the sales consultant gives them to go home. You're torn between the portico and the promenade. So I have a few videos for you. First one is my view when I'm setting up one of our communities or one of our home designs in Showroom Intro. It starts out pretty basic, just the 3 elevations, and I can see the home in 3D. So the first step is going through and selecting the options that I want to put out there for the buyers to actually see. And again, since this is an exterior view of the home, you're going to see in a minute how you can go in between exterior and interior, but the power is really on the exterior. So a lot of these options that we put out there are more exterior oriented, extensions to the home, windows options, different color palettes. So once you've made those selections, then it's very easy to navigate. I'm not a web developer by any means. So this is just a very easy to use interface where I can type the actual text that I want the options to say, because that's another thing. A lot of our options make sense to us, but they don't make any sense to a customer. And they might have codes before or after them based on what we have it set up in Mark's systems. So I'm able to type in here what each option is in a way that would make sense to a customer, and then also type a description too, where there are a couple of options we have out there that do lock each other out because they can't be done together. But I'm able to add a note there saying not available when the deluxe owner suite is chosen. And so then it makes sense why something goes ghosted and customers not confused and stopping. So here's what the experience looks like on our website. Once somebody has gone to one of our communities, this is actually one in the Raleigh-Durham market that I oversee. Once they've gone to a preferred home design, they click through to it, and then this is the interactive floor plan that pulls up. So this is what the buyer is seeing. They make those selections. It automatically populates. You can toggle back and forth between a photo row rendering and also a 2D view. You're going to see in a minute that you can also do what Higharc calls a dollhouse view, where you pop the top of the roof off, and then you're able to peer into the kitchen and see how the kitchen cabinets change when you toggle through some of those selections. So at the end of the whole process, there's a button at the bottom that allows them to save. They put in their name, their email address, their phone number. It tells them that they're going to hear from a sales consultant. We kind of had some debate about that, whether we consider this a live lead or not. We decided, since we put it in the description, that we are going to have our OSC reach out to this person after they do a configuration. And I get copied on all of them. So it's really exciting for me to see activity coming from the communities. And I can even click the link. It goes to this, what they've configured. So I can get on the phone and say, hey, Trenton, somebody configured a portico. When are you closing them? Then I also love seeing the ones where people do 5 within an hour. So they're really enjoying just playing around with it and seeing that happen. So here's the contact form. Email goes out to OSC, sales director, regional president. Rob gets on every one, so he probably gets 1,000 of these a day. But one thing that I've really, in a soft market or a challenging market right now, one thing just in the last couple of weeks I've started preaching to the sales team is the power and the magic of just setting a next appointment with somebody. If they're not at a yes right away, okay, put something on their calendar, get it booked, have a little bit of homework. And this is just a great thing, as I said earlier, if you can't think of what homework they have, or if there's nothing really clear in terms of meeting with a lender, okay, just send them home and say, you really showed a lot of interest in the portico. Why don't you go on the website, play with some of the options in different colors, and then come back. I'm going to put this on your calendar. We'll meet in a few days and talk some more. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Connor, and I think he's going to give a broader picture of what Higharc does and the power of connecting everything.
Just before you do that, I'll just add a little bit to that, is that when you show representations of a house, it's what potentially you could buy. When a buyer's doing this, they're designing their house, and it becomes a lot more personal. I've made selections. I'm seeing the elevation change. I'm seeing the colors change. Now it becomes very personal. It's not a house. It's my home, my potential future home. And there are other vendors out there that do an amazing job of just what he showed, doing the elevations, doing the colors. But can that lead to the construction documents as well? And that's really where we found the difference with this, is it's not just getting you to contract. It's now getting you to construction as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning of how this data gets to the endpoint to kind of define how that workflow works for a builder like Epcon or a builder like Luxar. What Higharc really does is redefine change management and allow for easier, streamlined change management by de-siloing all the different aspects of your business. We've got really good solutions in the industry, actually, that handle CRM data. We've got really good solutions that handle ERP data. We do not have good solutions that fully encompass the product data, which is really at the core of everything that we do. It's a hard problem to solve because you need to connect all of these different pieces, or you need to have different people doing all the individual pieces and spending a lot of time going back and forth, trying to talk to each other to make sure all the pieces are correct. What that ends up giving you is between different departments in your organization, people working in, you could have your designer working in Revit, you can have a purchasing and estimate, you can have an estimator working in Bluebeam, you can have your sales and marketing working, looking at your website, and you can have your construction documents, and none of those things will match. In order to get them to match, every time you have to go back to the start and you have to send that information through that workflow over and over. And a lot of times, by the time it gets to the construction documents, you start over again. Probably told this story before, but I once built the wrong house because of this exact thing when I was a construction director. We built a house with a bonus room that we had updated the plans, and it no longer had a bonus room. And you would think the buyer would have been pretty psyched because they were getting a free bonus room, but they actually canceled their contract. They were kind of so blown away that we could make such a big error that they said, we're out of here. So what you get is this kind of spaghetti Western standoff between teams where when you need to transfer information from one place to another, you end up in this kind of situation. Now, demonstrate. Mind anyone of anything? I started messing around with that a couple days ago, and I was like, "This is what we do to our teams, and this is it ends up with one person on one team shooting another team effectively, right? You're either shooting your customer, or you're shooting your designer, or your designer shooting your salesperson. It happens all the time at home building. So what Higharc tries to do in order to solve that is centralize all that information so that you can then disseminate it instantly. So on the left graphic here, it's pretty simple, but you have all these different types of product data. Higharc actually stores product data in a centralized location that's beyond the plan, so that you lay out all your settings. So I want to use this size trim, or I want to use 5/8 drywall all the time, or I want my base flooring to be vinyl, or whatever it is. It doesn't live in the individual plans anymore. It lives in a system that talks to those plans. That means that all the things on the right are always connected, and you can always update each piece automatically. So now I'm going to kind of take you through what that looks like in each kind of previously siloed area of a home building operation. So we start with the home plans themselves. So Higharc starts in what we call Higharc Studio, which is kind of our Revit or AutoCAD replacement. What you used to do is manage product data with drawings, right? You have your product data kind of buried in these drawings, and you have all this information, and it makes it very hard, very time consuming to update that information, because in order to update one bonus room, if you're a regional or a national builder, you might have to update thousands of plans. Instead of having that data in a static environment, when you move into a system like Higharc, you can now specify and disseminate those changes at any time to anywhere automatically. So I can say, hey, we changed window manufacturers, switch all of the windows in this specific plan series from Anderson to Pella. You can use technology to manage variation and to be more agile. That is one of the biggest things we've seen with builders, is the ability to take advantage of land opportunities that national builders are not able to, because they can't adapt their plan libraries as quickly as our builders that are using Higharc. I know this is what you mentioned, where we started with Higharc on my first day, was really looking at how do we get to lot specs quicker. And it was a process to get there, of course, dialing everything in. And we started with franchises, which I'm sure made it a little more complicated because every franchise is unique.
Yes. And never underestimate your design team's desire to overcomplicate. So that was part of.
Tell Matts you said that.
I'd say it if he was sitting in this room. That's our architect. They all have their personal preferences, of course. And so some of the initial obstacles in going to Higharc were just getting them okay with the fact that these plans weren't going to look exactly like last year's set of plans, and that the construction team was going to be able to build off of something different.
The back half, which is the little graphic on the right, is what we call config. And that's I like to describe it as, it's a non-studio drafting environment. So once you have all these options and these variations in the system, if I want to change to including a brick water table on a house, I don't have to go in and redraft that plan. I can just toggle on the option and say, great, now in this community, in this jurisdiction that requires a brick water table as a base, we just turn it on and we make that the base option. We don't have to go back and create a whole new set of plans in order to build. Or, down the street, there's a competitive builder that's all of a sudden they're going to offer a brick water table as a standard. Oh shoot, now we got to create a whole new set of lot specific plans. Nope, we can just make it standard, turn it on, and have it be ready to go.
Your example on the windows earlier, we changed from Geldwen to Pella about a year ago. And speaking of mats, that was something that was about to make his head explode, thinking of 7 different elevations on 18 different products and updating every window size. Go into Higharc's Procure. You just download a CSV file that has every window that's in our collection, the rough opening for it, type in the updates, upload it back, done.
So estimating and purchasing, that's something that sits in the middle of this process. think about all the manual rework, tracing, recounting, or even worse. I mean, when I was a construction director for a small builder, my purchasing department literally consisted of sending new plans out to trades and seeing what price they gave back to me. Instead of waiting or relying on trades and suppliers to get your pricing, instead of having to retrace and rework everything, when you make an update in the Higharc Studio environment, you can set the parameters of how, like, okay, are we updating the price of drywall, or are we updating the quantity of drywall, or both? Well, you can go in and you can update your base pricing for drywall, and it's going to give you the final calc. Or if you make a change, you add a bonus room, for example, like we were talking about. When you toggle on that option in Higharc Procure, which is what you're seeing here, it's automatically going to give you that new drywall count. The next piece is the showroom environment, which we've talked a little bit about, but I remember my first day when I was out there in the community in Cincinnati, and I don't remember the kid's name, but he was redlining master plans for every home they were creating instead of doing lot specs. So we had these plans that the buyers were using that they were literally just, I mean, they looked like they'd literally been covered in the blood of the superintendent working on them. That is just inherently going to cause errors eventually. I don't care how good you are at it. If there are humans involved, the chances of errors coming into this process are higher than if there are not humans involved and if you're setting with that data. So how can we make the job easier for our salespeople? When you set up in Higharc Showroom, you only have the options available that are available in that community. We can set up homes. If you probably have certain lots where you only want to offer your highest performing plans or your highest margin plans. Are you relying on a salesperson to go look at a separate chart and go, oh, well, I know I told you that the Birmingham was available on lot 47, but it's actually not. Higharc, you can set that up and you can say, on lot 47, we only allow these plans. On lot 47, you cannot fit a third car garage. On lot 47, you cannot do garage left. Training and change management, my very first slide is like, how Higharc makes change management easier. That does not address the buy-in that you need and the leadership that you need in order to make this possible. And there are inherently growing pains associated with that. It's just people are used to doing things the way they like to do them. We can't eliminate the human side of change management without just having leaders and having everybody go, we're all going to get on board with this and we're all going to figure it out. I have seen salespeople go in having never worked in the Higharc environment before, and then they go to search for a certain option. They go to search for sunroom, but in Epcon it's called screen porch. And all of a sudden they can't find it, and then they are immediately closing out of Higharc because they're like, oh, this is wrong and I don't trust it. Like, you can't eliminate practice. You can't eliminate getting comfortable with a tool if you want to be good at using a tool. We do get this enhanced by our experience. I'm sure you guys have been on builder websites before, but it still kind of blows my mind when I go on websites that only have flat 2D non-interactive floor plans. There are other providers that do have great interactive 2D floor plans. I haven't seen a ton of them that have the capabilities that Higharc does, that where you can see it in that dollhouse view and you can change options in 3D in order to see and feel what that space really looks like. And then being able to connect that and have brochures that are specific to a buyer configuration is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll just add to the fact with sales teams, when that person walks in the door for a scheduled appointment or a walk-in, they're on stage. The curtains open, the lights on, and they are on stage at that moment. They are representing your company, and they're trying to build trust and credibility. And coming to them with a piece of technology that says, hey, we're going to change everything you've been doing to date, and we're going to implement this. Good luck. How does that make them feel? It was a rough go. But the more they got used to the technology, the more they understood what it brought into the environment and how accurate it was, they started to build trust in it, and therefore were able to build trust in the customers walking in. It's getting our sales teams comfortable with it, letting them use it. We have a kiosk version of our website that when a person comes in, they pull that up on their large screen, and that's how they interact with our buyers. That's how we rolled it out to begin with. You're going to interact with the buyer. You're going to walk them through it. You're going to be making the selections based on conversation. They're going to start to see their home come to life. Once we as an organization got comfortable with it, what it can do, what it can bring, then we did a reconfiguration of it with a slimmed down, not dumbed down, slimmed down version of it for the public side of our website.
I think that's important to know though too. Like Epcon's a 55 plus builder. So like if we're talking about active adult buyer being able to do this, I remember some of the people I worked with in the indie division telling me they had people flying in from the Southwest who are going to buy a home in Indy who are cutting from 2 trips to do all of their selections to 1 because they were getting more than half of it done in Higharc ahead of time. I've been talking to Rob and Paul about Higharc for 4 years now, but one of the first things that Rob told me that has stuck with me is what we're trying to do with these tools is get the buyer to the next step of their buying journey faster, right? There are builders like Lexar who are doing full pricing online, and you can get pretty close. We were talking about as close as you can to a click to buy. But most of the people who are using Higharc are using it to move people through that journey faster, developing more trust, eliminating the microaggressions of not having the right information at the right time, and getting them through that process with more trust and comfort.
Most people don't get married on the first date. You're earning the second date. Keep that conversation going to build that trust that this is something they really want to do, and they want to make that commitment.
We kind of went from design and we went all the way through to sales, and this slide just kind of highlights the different sales outputs that are a result of the design centralized data inputs. So we have our 3D showroom, which is in the middle. Our customized sales brochure, which is on the right. There are additional pages of that brochure where you can add the options that have been selected with this brochure, the pricing that's been selected, not just in the design phase, but like in the sales phase. Like, Rob is like, well, we don't want to show the rendering. We want to show a color 3D line drawing or whatever it is. We've done a lot of work to make this system customizable to try to work with site maps. That's in the lower left there that are connected. Make sure you're not selling 2 different houses on the same lot to 2 different buyers. Click on one of those lots, build a house, and hit download, and download the construction document for that lot in under 5 minutes and take it in and get a permit on it. Photoreal renderings, we're down to being able to produce photoreal renderings extremely quickly because the base information is already in the system. Are they instant? No. Will they be? I don't know. There are definitely people in this room who know more about the AI components of that than I do. That's all of my slides.
That's awesome. I'm just blown away because, I don't talk to you guys all the time. It's about once a year, maybe, I think you've really progressed in the last year and the year before. So I'm sure you're not done with the journey, right? When you talk about some of the graphical assets and things like that, you're going to keep developing this and making it even better. But I love, your honesty around change management, right? And that came up in our survey, right? People wondering about how do you affect change management? And the net is we all want to get better. We all want the pain to stop. We want to all do things better, but sometimes we're not willing to change. And it's like, well, you can't move forward without that. But I think the key component you see here, one, that partnership between the tool provider and the builder and the leadership, right? So these two guys at Epcon had not collaborated, worked together with their other executives, it probably wasn't going to happen, right? Because you're moving people's cheese. It's like, I've always done it this way. But at the same time, it sounds like as soon as you kind of embraced it, got it going, and listened to your sales team and listened to the different folks, they pretty quickly saw it was a better way, right? So I think it's having that leadership, that courage, right, to step out and go, yeah, we're going to do it a different way, and then collaborate really tightly. I mean, it's pretty impressive. It really has come a long way.
Yeah, you could do a whole section on change management.
Right.
Change is hard, especially in home building. Building a home, I'm going to anger some people right here, but the home building hasn't changed that much over X amount of years. Like how you build a home, there's foundations, there's walls, there's other things component, but how you message it, how you visualize it, how people buy, all of that has changed dramatically. So how do you mirror those changes in how you market and sell with how you build? And that was really where this came into play. It was melding all of that together.